How to plant. Then we'll go over how to water. This is a potentia. This is one of those summer mixes. When you're planting this, realize your soil in your yard, it's terrible, terrible. There's nothing redeeming about any of your dirt. So you need to amend that some. In fact, some of you, you're almost a detriment. You have negative, you're like toxic waste to plants. You're gonna have to amend that. The little bit of topsoil that you did have, the contractor came in with a backhoe, and the first thing they did was get rid of all the living life forms on your lot. They just scraped it clean, and now you're left with literally dead soil. There's not one living, you won't find one worm, not one mycorrhizal colony. You'll find no living, breathing thing in the dirt. There's no organic matter. And there's no way for you to replace or to cap that all off. We put fabric over it and then put another 2 inches of rock to ensure nothing ever grows. And so you're gonna have to compensate for some of that. And we do it hole by hole. You can't replace the whole yard, it's just not practical. But you can resurrect or bring back to life individual holes. And once you start introducing those living organisms, all of a sudden worms, they just find their way. The mycorrhizal colonies, that's the things that can kind of connect to the roots and they help plants grow. When plants see mycorrhizals in the soil, they go, whoa, this has got to be a good place. I'm going to root out here. They just start rooting. So once you start enlivening that section of the garden, things just start taking off for you. The way you do that, whatever the size bucket is, that's how deep the hole is going to be. But then you're going wide. You're not going, you can add a bucket on each side. Okay, so this would be about 2.5, 3 feet wide by, what is that, about a foot deep. That's the size of the hole. If you happen to run into a rock or a boulder or something gets in there, or a big root or something, dig that out. That's not going to help that plant. So get it out of there. Some of you are going to be chest high in a hole trying to get this junk out of the hole. That's okay, you can compensate by adding some more organic material. If you can, though, most of us, we can dig a hole this deep. Much easier to dig a wide hole than a deep hole. Okay? You're going to have your soil off to the side, wheelbarrow or tarp, or just off to the side. There, you're going to screen that soil. Anything bigger than a golf ball, get it out of there. It just heats up in summer. The water molecules can't attach themselves. It just almost bakes. It roasts the root ball. So you want to screen that out of there. I've tried to take shortcuts on this in the past, personally, and it fails just almost every time. So there's been some holes I actually created a screen with 1/2-inch mesh, and I screened the soil because I kept killing plants. The second I screened it, took off just like that. So just take the time to look at that soil and take it out of there. Some of you have, like Prescott Valley, you're notorious for those rocks that they almost float out of the ground and emerge every rainstorm. So those are things you want to screen out of there, because in the summer they'll heat up and they actually roast the roots. So just kind of take that. Any old roots from old trees. As trees rot or compost in the ground, they actually taint the soil. They release creosotes and all kinds of strange chemicals to keep plants from growing in that spot. If you see that, pull those out. Big roots from tumbleweeds and pine trees, just take those things out of there. That's why I tell folks, if they've actually lost a tree and they want another tree exactly in that same spot, probably not advisable. Unless you're going to hire a backhoe or something to dig that whole thing out of there. It's better to go off center a little bit. Go off 3-4 feet. Don't plant in the same hole so we're not surrounded by all those composting roots. They're going to affect the way the next plant grows. They won't thrive as much. Okay, so just school of hard knocks we've learned or seen over the years. The soil, once you got it all screened down, add some mulch. That's going to be this stuff. So we make our own mulch. It's locally sourced. This is basically pine bark. We've got an old sawmill over in Taylor, Arizona. We've got the access to the pilings. The old, it's like 50-year-old palings sitting there. We screen that down, and then we make our topsoil and our mulch for that. We'll add a little bit of this to our potting soil. Potting soil is mainly peat moss. This is really screened out at 1/2 inch minus, so it's a good top dressing for seed, that kind of stuff. But it's really, this is made to add to your native soil, to amend it so that we can re-enrich that soil to attract the worms and the living organisms back into that surrounding soil. And it also, we're changing the structure of the soil. So if you dig up clay soil, you loosen it, you have it sit there, you take that clay soil and put it right back around the roots. The second you water it, it goes right back to the solid state that it came from. It goes right back to, doesn't stay aerated. If we add some organics in between the root, that clay soil, it helps to keep that soil from compacting back down. Now it allows the roots to get out through the soil. Allows it to start, encourages them to start going sideways. If you've got real granity or sandy soil, like up around Granite Creek, those or Granite Mountain, those areas are very crushed granite. The water just goes whoosh right through it. It's hard to keep things watered out there. So there, what we do, we add some mulch to it to help hold the moisture. It actually acts like a sponge and holds moisture in, so it keeps the water and fertilizer from flushing past the root ball. So there's some strategies to this. I'll add about 25-30% mulch to my native soil. Back to planting, how to amend that soil. So 25-30%, you can go up to 50%. Some of you are going to plant in a divot because you pull out this big rock. You just need more filler. But if you get too much mulch, it can actually be detrimental. It stays too wet. And so a little bit is good, a lot is not good. So up to about 50-50, but really about 25%, 1 scoop of mulch to 3 scoops of native earth, it's good. That's your mix you're going to backfill around that root ball. Now let's go over how to prep the roots. So let's take one, what's easy to work with. Let's take this 9 bark. It's probably going to make a mess, but let's just see what happens here. It should be fully rooted. Oh yeah, this is perfect. So that's the perfect root ball. That's what you want to see. What you don't want to see is roots wrapping around, growing around in circles. They call that root bound. Once a plant starts growing in circles, it doesn't stop. It just thinks it's been programmed, grow in circles. That's natural. Grow in circles, grow in circles. Here you're seeing the roots it's fully rooted, but you're seeing new root hairs, little white root hairs are just starting to emerge. You put that in the ground, those new root hairs keep growing out just like that. It's perfect. Now some plants are super aggressive. Willows, cottonwoods, lilacs, they grow so fast that sometimes they'll start to wrap a little bit. If you start to see some of that, especially at the bottom of the root ball, usually it'll cake right here. If I see that, I'll take my pruners or my knife and I'll just score the roots like that. And I'm just root pruning, that's what I'm doing. Just real lightly. I'm not under and that would probably be enough for this plant. I root pruned, cut some of the roots, and the reason we do that, we'll put this right back in here. The reason we do that, sometimes you'll make a cut on top, like say an apple tree. You'll make a branch cut, and all of a sudden you'll see 2 or 3 branches coming out where they're called suckers, start coming out from that prune. Roots do exactly the same thing. So when you make a cut, all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 roots forming from that cut. So there is a benefit to doing that. I just would never personally buy a root ball that was just started to be just truly root bound. Usually you'll see those in the spring. Usually you'll see them at a box store. And it's leftover material from last year. Usually it's cheap. The grower has to get rid of it because it's going to the compost pile. Just buy it. Will you give me $1 for this? Just take it. And so it's old carryover material from last year they couldn't sell. Now they sold it here. You pull the roots down and you go, oh, this is not right. It's root bound. That's just last year's crop. It should not have been sold, but you got it for a bargain, so sometimes it's worth a try. This would be better. Okay, when I plant that, I just scored it, put it in the ground. I'm going to take that and backfill that soil mulch mixture around that, tamp it down really, really well. 2 things roots do not like. 1, they don't like air pockets. They will not grow through air. There's no such thing as air roots. I mean, that's aeroponics, that doesn't happen in the soil. They don't want to transition through air pockets. They want consistency of the soil. Second, they don't like inconsistency of soil mix. So a mistake I've helped a couple of clients out with lately is they were taking a shortcut. They dug the hole, and they threw some mulch in the bottom, and then they kicked on some native soil, and they put some more mulch on it, kicked on some soil. They just had this layer of mulch, native soil. Roots hate that. They don't like that. They don't want to see different kinds of mixtures. They want to see consistency. So that's one, blend it first and then backfill around that. And that's consistent as you can, okay? Pack it down, then I'll water it in real good. Now, right now, a unique technique for now, our soils are really dry. And so if I were to take this nice, moist, healthy plant with new roots coming out, I put this in the dry hole, surround it with some dry mulch, amended soil, and then I try to water it. I will never get enough water on that. It won't be as consistent, though. As the water filters through all that soil type, it'll be veins of water, and the plant won't like that. What I'll do right now when the soil's real dry is I'll dig a hole, and while I'm mixing up my mulch and that kind of stuff, prepping the plant, I'm actually filling that hole up halfway with water. And all I'm trying to do is hydrate the soil around the root ball. What happens is if you put a moist plant in a dry hole, that all that dry soil immediately sponges or wicks away the water from the root ball, and the plant's left dry. Even though it looks moist, it's just dry, because we're trying, the soil around it is trying to take away, it's trying to rehydrate. That's how soil's going to work. Just hydrate it. Just help it. Just give it halfway full. So usually when I'm planting this is usually in the summer is the only time I do this. I'll actually plant that root ball in a half mucky kind of soil, kind of watery root ball at the bottom. Then I'll backfill. By the time I end up backfilling with this, all that water has been whipped up by the remaining soil, and no water ever goes back up out of the soil.